Okay, good afternoon everybody. This is Nick from Marmalade. I'm going to be running this Tizen with Marmalade webinar. Basically, over the next sort of 50 minutes to an hour, I'm just going to talk through the Tizen developer program that we're currently running, how it works, how to sign up, some troubleshooting for people with problems submitting to the store, and I'm also going to do a run through of using the Marmalade tools to build and deploy something for Tizen. So we're going to use Marmalade Quick, but you could use Marmalade C++ as well, just to show you how the tooling works. And also we'll talk a little bit about the added Tizen desktop emulator support that we've just released, and how you can use that to help test your build. We've got a couple of people from appbackr online as well who'll be able to answer questions. What I'd advise you to do is, if you've got any questions, then feel free to just type them away in the chat menu, in the menu there, and I'll try and answer them all at the end. But if I see anything particularly sort of relevant, I might pop up with an answer during the middle of the presentation. But we'll try and make sure that by the end of the webcast, we've answered all your questions about Marmalade or appbackr or Tizen or anything really. I was just giving it a couple of minutes for more people to join, but typically with these things, people tend to pop in and out. So what we're doing is we're also recording the whole presentation, and that will be up online at some point afterwards. We'll just provide that as a video that you can download or stream. So I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about the developer offer that we're running. This is quite similar to lots of other offers we've run before. It basically works around giving you free access to our tools, which you can use to build your app for Tizen, and then once you've submitted it to the Tizen store, we unlock further licensing options with Marmalade and also some nice incentives from Tizen themselves. So this time around, how it works is basically you need to go to the website, madewithmarmalade.com, and sign up for the Marmalade for Tizen program. This gives you a free month community license, but it's a specific Tizen license that lets you deploy straight to Tizen devices for testing. You can also use your existing Indie license. So when you sign up, you can sign up as a new user or just put in your existing credentials, and you can keep using your existing license. You just have to be able to make a build for the Tizen store. So the existing Indie developer licenses will let you build a Tizen app already, and the new free Tizen community license will let you build specifically for Tizen. How the offering then works is basically you have to submit a finished or almost finished app to appbackr. So appbackr are working very closely with Tizen and us to help make sure that quality apps make it onto the Tizen store. So what they're doing is basically rating your app using their own sort of fancy tech that basically just looks at, make sure it's a decent app that actually works, that conforms to the store requirements, and also has a look at, how sort of good they think it will be in terms of selling. So you get incentives based on how highly you score with appbackr. And the main thing we're doing for this offer specifically is that you can receive a free device from Tizen to test on if you reach a certain score. And then once you've done that, when you submit your final build to the Tizen App Store, we will give you a 6-month Indie extension to your license. So basically, whatever license that you're currently using, that you start the offer off with, we will give you an Indie license that gives you 6 more months of development, and you can use that to deploy to all other Marmalade platforms. So essentially, you can use the Tizen community one to build your Tizen app and get it on the Tizen store, and then once that's been accepted by Tizen, it'll then unlock to an Indie license, and you can deploy to all the other Marmalade platforms for free. And there are also cash incentives through appbackr's sort of regular setup. So basically, depending on how your app scores, you can get cash rewards. It's very easy to sign up. If you haven't signed up already, just go to madewithmarmalade.com/offers/Tizen and just click on the big orange button. That page there also has details of pretty much all of the terms and conditions and FAQs about the offer. So if there's anything that isn't clear from this webcast or you need to go and look up, that's the place to go and see it. Once you've clicked and signed up there, you'll get an email, and the email basically explains how all the rest of the offer works. It's pretty much instant that should get sent to you. It'll give you a link straight to the licensing page on the website that will show your Tizen license. So, for example, here you can see my Tizen license that I got another one of this morning just to give it a try. And that'll give you a license key, and then basically download the Marmalade SDK, put your email address and password in, and put the license key there, hit activate, and that's you ready to go. All very simple, nothing particularly fancy there. And as I said, if you've got an existing indie license, then you can carry on using that, and that'll just work because all you need to do is build a Tizen app. But you do need to sign up for the offer if you're going to keep using your existing indie license. So make sure you go to the offers/Tizen and click sign up anyway. How the appbackr rewards work very basically is when you've got a functional near complete app, so basically something that has all of the menus and the basic, say, gameplay ready, and that shows what the app is capable of. Maybe it's got some minor bugs that need fixing and that sort of thing. But once you have something that can be tested, then you need to go to the Tizen page, and there's a submit button there. The URL straight to that is just offers/Tizen/submit. There are two things you can submit here. You can submit the build of the app itself. So with Marmalade, just make a deployment and send that off, so the TPK file. But also if it's an app or game that you already have published on another store, and that includes on iOS and Android stores, you can just provide a link to that existing published version, because what appbackr is going to do at this point is basically to take a look at your app and rate it to see how eligible it will be for their rewards at the end. If your app scores a 7 or higher on appbackr's rating system, then Tizen will send you a free device. This is while stocks last, so basically it's the first however many people who enter specifically through this Marmalade offer and get a 7 or higher from appbackr. And then appbackr will provide you info on what to do next, how to improve your score, and how the rest of the submission process works. One very important thing is that submissions have to be made no later than December 31st this year, so basically the end of the year. And that's for all of this. So signing up for the offer, getting this initial submission in to qualify and to get your score, and also submitting your final Tizen app. December 31st is the final deadline for that. And then once you've done that, you just have to polish your app up, so make sure it's completely ready for the Tizen store, and submit it. As I said a moment ago, December 31st is the deadline for all of this. Tizen might reject the app, so they will be judging the app basically on the standard store criteria. If you go to Tizen website, it gives you a list of things the app needs to do, and I'm going to go through the important ones in a moment just to make them super clear. But if they reject your app, they should give you instructions on why they rejected it and what you can do to fix the problem. And then the important thing you have to do to let us know that you've completed the process is to send an email to tizenhelp@marmalademail.com with just basically the link to the app in the store and the content ID. So on the store submission page, it'll be fairly obvious what those two things are. That's just to provide to us so that we can track your app and make sure that you don't get lost in the system. But you do have to send us those two things to qualify. And at that point, providing you've passed Tizen's submission requirements and they've accepted your app, we'll send you a new indie license which you can activate and then just use like any regular indie license in the SDK. So I said I'd go a little bit more into detail for the appbackr requirements, and we have an engineer from appbackr online who can go into this a little bit more than I can, but just to sort of the things that you absolutely have to have in your app to qualify. It has to be made with Marmalade, so as appbackr will be able to check if your app was built with a different tool and you're just submitting it through the office. So make sure you use Marmalade and the Hub to deploy your app. It needs to support Tizen screen resolutions. So 480 by 800 and 720 by 1280. You can lock it to portrait or landscape. So, I mean, you don't have to make sure your game will work in both orientations, but just make sure that it runs and it looks good in those specific orientations. It needs to support the hardware buttons on Tizen. Tizen has volume buttons, back button, menu, home button, very, very similar to Android. The nice thing, Marmalade supports all those things automatically, so your app will support interrupts from the home key and switching backwards and forwards, and all of the hardware, like the audio hardware, will shut down automatically. So you don't basically have to do anything for that, but you may want to respond to the back key. So the main thing is the back button should progress backwards through your menus if you have them. Close the app down if that's appropriate. In C++ Marmalade, you just need to listen for the S3 key back key press, and in Quick, it's key.back. So those are nice and simple, and just make sure that your app responds in a sensible way to those. You need to include the correct icons. So Marmalade will let you pick a generic icon option, and it will automatically build you icons to fit the resolution of the platform you're submitting to. So if you have a folder full of icons and you set the generic icon deployment option to that folder, it will pick one that is closest to the Tizen size and scale it up and down for you. So essentially that's all automatic, but my personal recommendation is to make a nice tailored version of your icon for each size of platform you want to support, just because it's always going to look nice if you do it yourself. For Tizen, the icon for devices is 117 by 117 pixels PNG file with a transparent background. And if you go to Tizen's developer site, there are extra sort of hints on style guidelines and that kind of thing. But that's the basics, that it needs to be that size and that format. And to pick that, you can use the Tizen-icon deployment option, or in the hub, just when configuring your app, go to edit configuration and set the icon setting. And I'll show you that in a minute, but that's all very simple. The other thing you need is a custom icon for the store. So these are 512 by 512 pixels, maximum 1 megabyte, and that's just something you select when uploading. So hopefully that's all pretty straightforward. One thing to note is that you can deploy a Marmalade app without picking an icon file. It'll just put the default Marmalade icon in, and your app will be rejected if it has that. So you need to have a nice, unique icon for your app. And then we had a few questions about what are the appbackr rewards and how do they work. So the initial thing is if you hit the minimum of 7 when you submit your pre-release app build through this Marmalade program, then you can qualify for a free Tizen device subject to availability. But then beyond that, appbackr will be giving out awards based on your scores as soon as your app is up on the store. So, for example, there are cash incentives. As it says here, they could total up to $1,750 for apps that already have retail info. So basically, if your app is already out on another store and appbackr's rating system, by going through that, determines potential value of it, then that's the incentive that you can get. And up to $250 for apps that don't have retail sales. So basically, something brand new that you've created for this event. And exactly how those work will be detailed once you've submitted your app and appbackr send through further info. And then the thing about further promotions is it's worth noting that the Tizen store isn't live yet, so there are no devices in people's hands. But once the store is up and running, Tizen will be doing things like carousels and promotions and stuff like that, and appbackr will be working quite closely with them, so there's the potential to qualify for those if your app rates highly enough. A few notes on desktop setup for Tizen. Unlike some of the other platforms, Tizen is basically a pretty sort of generic standard Linux platform, so no real hoops to jump through whatsoever. As with most things on Marmalade, you can work on a PC or a Mac, so download the PC or Mac version of the SDK. I'm actually here working on Windows 8 on a Mac, so and that's all working nicely for me. You don't need the Tizen SDK to build and deploy, so all of the Tizen stuff is pre-built into Marmalade for you. Just use C++ or Lua code and hit the button to go. But once you come around to signing your build to go on the store, you do at the moment need to use the Tizen SDK to generate signing assets. So for earlier versions of Tizen, if you were on their developer program, you didn't actually need to sign builds at all to test them out. And then later versions you do, and that's all sort of bundled. Marmalade makes that stuff very simple for you. You can just pick the certificates through some setting options, and actually you can just drop certificates into a folder and it'll all just get picked up automatically. But once you want to put a build on the store, you will need to sign it. So you will need the Tizen SDK for that. So I've included a link there for it. It's pretty straightforward, and I'll pop up the website links in a moment as well. For C++ development, you need an IDE to work in. Well, you can build from the command line, but I would recommend using an IDE for debugging. And you can use pretty much any modern version of Visual Studio or Xcode. So I think right back to Visual Studio 2005 is still supported, and you can use all of the Express versions. I'm going to use Express 2010 in a moment. And for Marmalade Quick, you don't need any additional IDEs. So the Zero Brain IDE for Lua ships with Marmalade, and you can edit your Lua code and debug from that. And there are no additional tools needed at all to get started. One final thing, and this is very new, is that on Windows at the moment, and hopefully later on Mac, you can now test your builds on the Tizen desktop emulator. So we basically have a beta version of Marmalade SDK that you can download and use. And this just has Tizen x86 emulator added as a new platform, which will basically let you build an app for Tizen, but for x86 architecture, deploy it, and open it with the Tizen emulator that ships with Tizen's SDK. And that basically lets you test out on a real-life but fake desktop device, so you can play around with the hardware buttons and check it works with the interrupts and that kind of stuff. It's a very nice, easy-to-use emulator compared to some platforms as well. You can basically set up devices in different resolutions and do whatever you want. And that's all integrated into the hub in this new beta version, and I'll provide a link to that a little bit later on. So we had a fair few questions about Quick and developing apps with Quick, and can I use Quick for Tizen, and can we provide some extra links and help with various Quick kind of stuff. So I'm just going to have a really quick run through some Quick slides that I've used before, but that will give a little intro to what Quick is and how it works. If anyone's got any questions about any of these, then just fire away in the chat window, and I'll try and answer at the end. Until about, I guess, a year ago, Marmalade basically was just a C++ platform. So we have a C abstraction layer, all this custom toolchain for building, so you would just code in C, you use our abstraction API, you hit build, you select iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, whatever, hit go, and you get a build out of the end that will run on the device. We used Xcode Visual Studio as a front end, and we have a nice front end tool called the Hub for managing all of that, lots of built-in middleware and extensions and so on. What we found was we had a lot of people who were sort of new to game programming and weren't maybe C++ users, wanted to use something a bit lighter and more like a high-end scripting language, and also a lot of our tools are very 3D oriented, and we had people wanting to do simple, fun 2D stuff. So we decided we'd basically build a bit of middleware around that. There's quite a few other existing bits of 2D tooling out there. They tend to either be just geared towards sort of what you see is what you get editor for drag and drop stuff, or they're very limited to a single platform, mostly just iPhone or Android, and also a lot of them are open source tools that you don't get a lot of support for. So we basically decided we can build a nice 2D rapid development tool on top of Marmalade, and that's what we did. So Quick is basically that tool. What it is it's pure middleware that runs on top of Marmalade. It uses Cocos 2D internally, uses Lua as its main language, and SQLite and Box 2D for physics and file handling internally. But you also get access to quite a lot of regular Marmalade APIs. Is kind of the interesting thing with Quick. So there's a lot that Quick does out of the box, but you can also extend that to do a lot of interesting things that you can't do with a lot of other 2D engines. The reason for using Lua is basically it's a really fast scripting language. It's very simple. It compiles down to pretty fast code for what it is. So compared to using C++, obviously you can do more stuff with less code. It's basically more of an out-of-the-box engine rather than just language support. So the C++ SDK gives you C++ language support and an easy way to target platforms, and then you can use lots of other middleware on top of that to create something more powerful. Quick is out-of-the-box, an actual 2D game engine, and it's all open source. So both the Lua code and the C++ code in Quick is all completely open source, and it uses popular frameworks that also have external plugins and tools and editors for them, so you can jump straight in with lots of Cocos 2D based utilities. And also it's got a built-in Lua ID for debugging, which we'll have a quick look at in a minute. And how it works, if you're really interested, is basically it's a regular Marmalade C++ app that implements all of the fast performance critical parts. So that's why it's not actually using Lua to do a lot of the rendering logic and all that kind of stuff. That's just some C++ code running up on the GPU as fast as it can. But it just provides Lua bindings to useful things, and also it gives you a Lua front end to most of the useful C++ parts of Marmalade. So all of the things like accelerometer access and location access and camera access and that kind of stuff is just wrapped with a nice, easy Lua API. It's also fairly similar to something like Corona, if you've ever used that before. So Corona is also Lua, works in a very similar way, but the nice thing with Quick is because it's just built on top of regular Marmalade, there's nothing like any online builder tools or anything like that. You just download the Marmalade SDK, you code away in Quick, you can get a build onto your device in seconds, and because all of the powerful C++ bits are usually ready built, it doesn't take any time to build your app really at all, but it's got lots of nice useful options for speeding it up, so compiling the Lua to binary and removing debug options and that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do, I think, is just have a look at a bit of an example in the Marmalade Hub, and also I'm going to use this as an opportunity to play around a bit with the Tizen options, show you how the new Tizen emulator support works, and things you would want to pick when deploying your app to Tizen. So to show you just very quickly here what some Quick code looks like, this is some code here for creating some text on the screen, creating a button by just loading a sprite from a file. And then events in Quick are very simple. You basically can add listeners to objects. So we have our button object that we created. We add a touch listener to it, which is going to call this function I've also called button. And when the touch event happens, the function gets run. And during the began phase, so that's the point where you first touch the screen, it changes the color of the text to blue. So there's simple things you can do for changing events, and then also you can do animations about the same, so that's what that would look like in the Marmalade simulator. Something a bit more complex to add a bit of physics in. I've got a system event called touch, so this is when a touch happens anywhere, not connected to an object, and when this touch event begins, I'm creating a sprite at some coordinates using this image. So event X and Y here are the positions of the touch event. Director is the kind of global manager object of Quick, so this does things like creating all of the sprites, managing scene transitions and anything like that basically. And then also I've added some physics, so all you have to do in Quick to add physics is basically call physics add node. There's a global physics engine that runs as soon as you add any physics to the scene. This is my ball object B, and I'm just going add the ball to the global physics engine. By setting a radius of 40 here, it knows that it's a circular object, it's a ball, so things will collide with it as if it's round. And then I'm adding an event listener to the ball, similar to the button earlier, that just says when a collision happens, run this other event. And then my collision event here I've made up, similar to the one above. This time it's creating a sprite, again at the position of the collision, and it's a little cross in this case. So this is like an impact marker, is what I'm doing with this. And then tweening is Quick's main animation engine for moving things. So basically, you take an object and you can go tween from a current state to some other state. So it's going to take 0.25 seconds to go from the current X size to 0 and Y size to 0. So you can get pretty powerful animations by just stringing together sets of tweens that do things like changing size, position, shape, rotation, color channels, anything basically that you can set as a value in Quick. And that's an example of what you might build with that. So simple little falling 2D physics thing built with a couple of lines of code, but you could see how you could easily build that into a physics game where you might, throw some birds around and hit things with them. One thing to mention a little bit about is extending Quick. So as I was saying, the C++ and Lua parts are all open source, so if there are things you don't like with how Quick is implemented or things you want to change, then you can basically just edit them. There's also a thing called Lua, which is all documented in the Quick docs, which allows you to wrap any Marmalade C++ API. So if there's a useful third-party extension, we have extensions for all sorts of things like billing APIs and analytics and advertising and so on. If there's a C++ version, but there isn't a Quick version, then you can basically run Lua on it to generate a Lua wrapper for it and then integrate that into your code. And if you do that, we encourage you to try and make that available again to other Quick users. Quick is very much a kind of community project. And then, as I said earlier, also, because of that, there's lots of integration with different editors and sprite editors and so on. And this just gives you a bit of an idea of how sort of the components of Quick work and how you can extend them and do more things with them. So I'm just going to switch over to the SDK for a minute. As I said earlier, we do have a version of the SDK that's new, specifically to add support for the Tizen emulator. So if you go to office/Tizen on the developer page, and you'll see here under this download bit, this is a link specific to this new version of the SDK. It's a beta version, so it's pretty well tested, but there'll be, it's not as guaranteed as stable as the current 7.02 download. So I would advise you to use 7.02 to make your builds that you submit to the store, and to use this version for emulator testing. But I've been using it this week, not had any problems. If you just click here, it'll take you through to the beta downloads page, and then Tizen emulator support, download for Windows. I've already downloaded and installed this earlier. And this is the Hub app from Marmalade. So just to show here, this is a 703 beta version that I've downloaded there, and I've activated a Tizen license just to show you that. So without the beta version, you won't get access to the emulator, and this Tizen license will let me deploy to Tizen, all the different Tizen builds, but doesn't support other builds because it's this special community license. We can look at C++ or Quick ones. I'm going to just build a Quick app just to show the process. So I'll just make a demo app here. And the Hub's basically a front-end project management tool. If you're completely new and haven't used it before, you basically pick a platform. So I've got the wrong version open here. Just a second. Okay, well, we'll fire up in the simulator first anyway. So by default with Quick, it's pre-built C++ app for me, so I can hit run. It'll just launch the simulator. There's no code in the app basically yet, just apart from a bit of text that will display some. This is my app info here. But if I open up the project directory, so our pre-built C++ app, and in the resources folder is our Lua code and other resources. So if I open this guy up, you'll see that The zero brain IDE that ships with Marmalade has been automatically set as the default editor for .lua files. I'm going to cheat a little bit and paste some ready-built code into my app. So here's my quick app. That's the bit of text that was already printing. A little bit of pre-written code that I've stolen earlier. So this is just going to add a background image and a ground image to the floor. And also we probably actually want some icons. Just having a little look through the website links for everything. So you've got the Tizen SDK download, which is available straight from the beta downloads page. So the Tizen offer page has got a link through to downloading the latest version of Marmalade SDK. That will take you. That's how you get through to the beta download for Tizen. Tizen SDK itself, which is pretty easy to find, just downloads Tizen SDK. This is where you download the Tizen SDK, and that does include the emulator, as I said. I'm not sure if you would have seen the emulator running now. And then the Marmalade docs website here. So there's a platform guide section, which includes the Tizen platform guide. Anything that I've covered that you want more detail on or that you missed, basically it guides you through setting up the devices and desktop, where to get things from. And there is a new section here on deploying to the Tizen native emulator, so how that integrates with the emulator that's in the new beta version, and then a section that walks you through distributing to the store. But once you've submitted your app for review, you'll get further information on what to do after that and how to submit. And that's basically just covering all these things. A couple of things to point out is there's a billing API for Tizen, which you don't have to use for this offer. So you can make a premium app that's just pay for once. But if you want to use in-app purchases, there's an out-of-the-box S3 Tizen iApp API. This is for C++ only at the moment, but as I said earlier, you can wrap those C++ APIs for Lua and Quick if you want to. And then also this link at the bottom here gives you all of the Tizen specific deployment options. So I had a quick look through those from inside the hub, but if you just want to know the specifics of the icon settings and splash screens and that kind of thing, those are all laid out in detail there. And then also, yes, one thing worth mentioning for Quick is that there isn't a simulator option for quick builds for Tizen at the moment, but you can use the regular deployment tool. So if you fire up Marmalade's deployment tool, which is just available as a .app on Mac or an exe on Windows from the tools folder, you can build deployments for the x86 emulator there, and I'll make sure there are instructions up on the developer page for how to do that. So I think that's pretty much all we have time for now. Any questions at all, please feel free to add them to the chat window. I'm sorry about I think there was a bit of a technical issue with the screen showing at some point there, so if there's anything that was missing or that wasn't very clear because of that, please ask away and I'll pull up the hub and use any of the options there that people need to see. Hi again, everyone. So we also have Sarah Cornwall from appbackr in the chat, and she's going to just talk a little bit more about the how the appbackr stuff works, basically, and how the scoring system works. So I will just hand over to her. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Hi, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, great. I'm also going to share show my screen.
Sure.
And we can also run through the steps to add the app to the Tizen store, which is very basic.
Perfect.
And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just run over the some of the basics when it comes to the app score and appbackr. The app score and appbackr is really judging the apps on the same criteria that the Tizen seller store uses. So it saves developers time by identifying any issues before they submit to the store and get back that error message. And most of them are very standard. There's the back button issue that Nick's talked about. There's the icon issue that Nick's talked about. And then one or two just content issues. If there's just not enough content, we can notify developers of that before the Tizen seller store does. And then, so that's the first layer. Then after that, in terms of the scoring the app, it's an incentive for developers with very good apps to take the few extra steps to bring them over into the Tizen seller store, and hopefully maybe even incentivize them to want to develop more. We think the Tizen store has a lot of great opportunity for developers to monetize their app in a new way, and we want to just help as many developers see the store for the first time and get their apps in the store before the store opens and before devices start selling to consumers early next year. So you should be able to see my screen now. This is a page in our tools section that has a lot of resources for developers. This page is some very basic, so some screenshots of what to do and when you do go onto the seller store for the first time. First step is registering as a seller. It takes about 5 minutes and then you're instantly registered. This Tizen seller store URL is seller.tizenstore.com. When you go on, you will see that there's a Join Now button in the upper right-hand corner. You can register as either a private or a corporate seller. A private seller is an individual. A corporate seller is a corporation. You'll then fill in some additional fields and submit, and you will receive a welcome email from the store. You'll open that email and verify the account. Then you'll instantly have your developer deep link number, which is a 10-digit number that identifies you in the Tizen seller store. And then, so going forward, all apps you have will be under that developer deep link. You'll log back into the Tizen seller store, and you'll have the opportunity to add your first app immediately. You do that by clicking the Add New App button, and you'll go in. Your content ID will be immediately created for that app. You'll see that content ID in the URL. It will be a 4 or 5-digit number with preceding zeros that identifies the app. You'll be able to add all your app's information. So when you are at this step, it will be important to have your screenshots ready. You can have 4 screenshots, and we recommend that you do. It's those type of things that are going to make the app more likely to be promoted once the store is open. Enter all the required fields. It's very straightforward and very easy to upload your screenshots. And then the one step that we ask you to do is to add the word appbackr in the comments for the validation team field. This is a required field, so you can't miss it. It's the very last field, and that allows us to track your app's progress faster because we can get an automatic email back from the Tizen store when the app is validated. You'll confirm your submission, and you will hear back from the Tizen store in 48 to 72 hours. The status will either be changed for sale, and then congratulations, you're in the store, or it will be rejected. If it's rejected, you will get a very complete report from Tizen on why the app was rejected. You'll be able to make those changes and reload the app, and then hopefully after that the app will be for sale. So it's pretty straightforward. We've been very impressed by it. The store is very fast with confirmation, and they're very thorough when there is a issue if there are changes that need to be made. So, and if you do get any information or a report back about this app being rejected and it's not as clear, you can email us and we can help you and walk you through the process. We've been doing this for several months now, and I think we've handled several hundred apps from Marmalade, and we've seen most of the issues, and I think we can typically help you very quickly with any questions you have. So Nick, I think I can hand it over to you. If there are any other questions after the webinar, again, just feel free to email us and we can help you with anything you need.
Okay, thanks very much, Sarah. I'm just having a look through the questions that are on there. Most of them seem to have been answered, and I think I can see the point at which the video playback seems to have frozen, which is a bit of a shame. So I think we've got a few more minutes. I'll just have a look through, just demonstrate through the Tizen deployment options in the hub again. There was also a couple of questions for Sarah in there. One was about, hasn't been answered, was about can you control the release date for a submitted app with Tizen? And the other one was about having not heard anything about devices, so having submitted and not seen anything about a device being sent. So, so if you could answer those two questions quickly, Sarah, that'd be great.
Yes, I think you can select the release date of when your app would be shown in Tizen. I'll need to double check that because the Tizen store isn't live yet, so it's not an issue and will not be going live for the rest of this month. So I can check that. The devices, well, we were able to ship out about the first 50 devices to developers, and then fortunately the devices that we have are being updated to the latest versions. So we have not been able to ship any devices for the last 2 weeks as we've been waiting for those new devices to become ready. We're hoping that they're ready this week. When they are ready, if you have qualified for one, you'll receive an email from us with a new NDA to sign, a non-disclosure agreement. As soon as you sign that, we will confirm the address. If you've already sent it to us, we still have it on file, and we'll confirm that with you. If you have not sent it to us, we will ask for your address, and then the devices will ship out a few days after that, and you'll receive tracking information. So we are hoping that will happen this week. It's possible that it won't happen until next week.
Okay, thanks. And I've got one specific request about not having had a follow-up email. So from Ken, we'll chase up on that offline. So I know Ken, he should have got an email back, so I will chase on that for you. And I think, Sarah, am I right in saying the reply time for submitting to appbackr is quite short, so like 48 hours?
It's about 48 hours. We do it manually, and we are based in California, so over the weekend it may be an extra day. That's something to keep in mind. But no, it is generally 48 hours. And after this webinar, we are going to send out, later today, we're going to send out an email to all of the developers that are currently in our system, reminding them of the current status and if there's any issues we have or any missing information. So everyone should receive an email from us later today with just a reminder of where they are in our system and any next steps they need to do.
Excellent, great. And there was also a quick question about if there'll be a video available later on, which there will be. So we'll make sure that goes up online, and we send out an email with the link to that. It looks like there's probably going to be a little bit of video missing from that video. So what I might do is just record a standalone video with going through some of the Tizen deployment options and so on, so that if that's missing from there, then they'll still be captioned. You can download that later. because I think we're going to have to hop out of this call fairly shortly. Okay, well, thanks everybody who's taken part. Thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us. I will save the chat log and the questions and have a quick check through them after this, make sure we haven't missed anything, make sure that video goes up online, and I'll also provide through a set of useful links to things like the quick resources and the Tizen developer pages that aren't currently up on our Office page. Thank you very much, and have a good weekend.